this morning.
What's going on,
And
Charlie?
he is joining us in studio. You mind if I ask you? Good morning to you, Bruce.
Well, good morning to you.
Thank you for joining us. You mind if I ask you some financial questions? I mean, my mother-in-law has a saying. She says, never take advice from a loser. And Bruce, certainly a very, very successful person. We've been talking about $1.4 billion lottery. And I jokingly, I don't know how jokingly, but I said this morning, I don't know if I'd want to win $1.4 billion. There's an awful, you're looking at me like,
right? Isn't he nuts? He's crazy.
I want to hear the rest of that.
Yeah.
All right.
It would change your life tremendously. I mean, going from where yours was not an overnight success story. It was a long time to get there. It's college buddies.
Look at this. Look at this.
What the hell is
This
it?
is Powerball numbers right there.
We're still counting on winning. We have the number.
It would change your life tremendously from. I couldn't be a private I couldn't be a public person any longer. I'd have to go be private. You'd probably have to have a security detail. I mean, it would change your life tremendously. So I don't know if I'd want to win that much money. And if I did, what should I do with it? How would I invest it?
Well, you could finance a campaign or two, right?
That was the build-up for what to do with your money, the money that you haven't won.
What do you do with your money?
Yes.
And I mean, $1.4 billion, Bruce, that's a lot of money. We've recently seen your...
It's a lot. 1.4 is a lot of zeros.
That's a lot of zeros.
Well, listen, I said yesterday if I won, I'm taking a day off from campaigning. I'm going to spend the day with you eating your pizza.
Let me ask you another financial question.
That was it? That was the question?
Well, that's the question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You don't. You apparently you don't agree with me. $1.4 billion.
I don't think many people agree with you, Charlie.
No.
Well, I think you need psychological help.
Yeah, well,
our mental health system.
we've known that for a long time, Bruce.
It's not working here.
I would be happier to settle for a little bit less and not have to put up with everybody knocking on the door, asking for money.
Yeah, I understand.
Right?
I mean, so just continue on with what you're doing. That's okay.
Yeah.
So don't buy a lottery that doesn't have at least $100 million or something. I don't wake up for whatever.
Yeah, I don't want. Yeah, 1.4 is too much.
Yeah.
Way too much.
Yeah.
All right, let's take his ticket.
Yeah, he doesn't. Oh no, he won't even have a ticket. He won't buy one.
He won't join us. He won't join us.
Really?
No.
I'm collectively 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will be $10 richer than all of you tomorrow morning.
Maybe 20.
You're right. You remember those? You remember the E-Trade ads with the baby?
Yes.
Your chances of winning a lottery ticket the same as being bitten by a polar bear on the Amazon or something.
Oh, wait a minute. I take that back. I won't be $10 richer collectively. There's no way I'm going to be anywhere near you. You're well.
You might. You don't know. You don't know how much I put into this. You don't know how much I put into the lottery.
Whoa, man. And before we get into that, talking about your wealth, because that is an issue. It's an issue in campaigns, and you're not dodging it. You revealed
I disclosed it.
You disclosed early.
Yeah.
Can I ask you why? Why'd you go so early? You didn't have to.
Well, no. In fact, we don't. In our state, we don't have a package of ethics, so there's no requirement for someone seeking statewide office to do much of anything.
Yeah.
And I might add, it extends into the House and Senate. There's a minimal requirement in the Senate. Nothing. House have a biography that's accurate, which, by the way, is a huge upgrade from a few years ago. So, well, let's be clear. Just to start up. So one is I believe that we need an ethics package, including an ethics commissioner or committee, and I've been here talking about it probably for 5 years. So why would I hold myself out as an exception? And second, I want to set a standard for clarity. And I believe the other statewide office seekers should do the same and should do it soon, not later. I mean, who wants to do that, right? This is an excruciating, experience of disclosing.
Well, it's a very personal thing, yeah.
Well, yes, and so when this is America, where we feel that we have a right to privacy, but you sort of give it up, and here I am talking to you at 7 o'clock in the morning. The other side of it is just to put some context to it. I actually wasn't born with that.
I know you weren't.
Absolutely not. You worked very hard.
My dad was a teacher in South Burlington High School. We have many of his former students come up to me still to talk about him. And my mom was secretary at the University of Vermont so that my brother and I could get the employee discount. And that was a different time, but it was still expensive for us. So I worked for nearly 4 decades. So this is not it wasn't a moment I didn't hit the lottery. Believe me, along the way I bought lottery tickets. They did not come in. So I say we should all have the opportunity to be successful, however we define it. I don't think my life is defined by what you saw there. I think I have a better context than that, more than one dimension to succeeding, but we ought to encourage those who want to succeed and make sure there's an opportunity.
No, I agree with you 100%, Bruce. And the fact that you, and I know you came from very meager beginnings. You grew up on North Street, did you not?
No, you keep
Was it North Street or not?
No, North Willard Street.
No, North Willard Street.
A few in from Archibald Street.
Yeah.
You know, my grandfather had a slaughterhouse out where Susie Wilson Road is. I'm not sure what it was called then, possibly the same thing.
Yeah.
It was cows and turkeys. So that's what he did. But he had a stroke at a young age and basically gave it up.
But you also understand that in Vermont, we've seen this in previous campaigns where the person that is wealthy, Rich Tarrant, had to defend the fact that he was wealthy. Bernie Sanders took that off as the guy's a millionaire, he's a multimillionaire. Rich Tarrant started out with nothing as well.
Yeah.
It's a positive. So you have to sell that because it also, you have the stigma of, well, he was on Wall Street. They get that whole Wall Street thing. You find yourself having to defend that, do you not?
In private, not as often as you would think. In fact, rarely do people really ask me about Wall Street, though they're curious about what I've done. So I'm old enough where I've done enough that there's parts of it are, in fact, instructive. So we ought to talk about Wall Street. So again, a story I've told you before, it was only by luck or circumstance that I ended up there at all. I didn't have a career plan. Who the heck had a career plan at 21 or something? I was trying to do something else, but not particularly thinking about working. And so I started as a file clerk. That's filing green with green, red with red, yellow with yellow. And the guy I worked for said, you're really not any good at this. What the heck? I thought you had a college education. You can't even do the colors. I'd lose interest. You're filing. You get these OSHA. Today we OSHA. You get all these paper cuts from filing. And I didn't, daydream. He actually gave me a pay cut. He said, if you want to keep this job, I'm going to cut you by 10%. And by the way, I wasn't making enough to live anyway. I was sharing an apartment with friends, so that was my start. I would call it inauspicious. In the end, I would run a large division of my firm. That started as a small one, but I grew it over 20 years into a substantially sized one, with initially no more than probably 100 or so people. At the end, 2,350 people worked for me, with another 1,000 or so in support. And in that process, it's a long time to do, I'd say, one thing, and I was good at it, just to be fair. And it's a competitive world, so if I wasn't, I wouldn't be doing it for long. So I built, with the help of others, of course, IT projects of some scale. Smaller ones I would call elegant front ends, like Healthcare Connect. My world would have been a front-sided system that would have an elegant framework, so easy to use functionality. This has none of that, and it costs the size of a massive project. And over the years, I managed and restructured, brought in people who were talented managers who liked working with people, and we had a strategic plan that didn't change so much over a long period of time, though year to year. So I would say the sum of all that part of my life is I was a hard-working young man from Burlington who had no special, talking about athletic skills. It wasn't.
Talking about that. Yeah.
That wasn't me. But I worked. There's something about me. I work hard, and I work with persistence, and grew a business from small to very large, from not so good to very good, and did it through with a process that people liked working for me.
Did the guy that gave you the pay cut live long enough to see you prosper, and did you ever say anything to him?
He had it in filing.
Yes, his name was Felix Marx, and he was he fled Germany in the early 30s, was a fantastic athlete, may have been on the Olympic team, and he was a great guy who he and I stayed very close until his passing.
Let's talk about some of the things the governor talked about in his State of the State address, and a couple of them right in the area of finances. I would ask you about divesting our retirement funds from ExxonMobil. Good idea, bad idea?
Yeah, without context, it's a terrible idea. So I get it that people want to make a statement about fossil fuels, and they want to make a statement that fossil fuel ownership of the stocks of those things is bad things, part of a cultural change. The only time that we've had a successful, if you will, broad divestiture was apartheid, South Africa. It was a universal process to put tremendous pressure on that government, and ultimately it was one of many things that worked to change that. I don't think it's the same here. Treasury Secretary Pierce said she was opposed to it. I didn't catch the reasons, but the pension plans have an obligation to serve those who would receive a pension. And so if we're going to divest of something, we want to be sure that performance is good enough to, well...
And isn't that a decision that the treasurer should be making versus the governor or the legislature?
Yeah, I think he did. I think that was part of a sloganeering, part of shaping who he is as opposed to what we should do. And it's improbable we would do it for one company. I don't think we have the facts.
$250 account for children, a college account. The governor talked about this. You'd be given $250 when you're born. If you're of low income, you'd be given $500. In all seriousness, 18 years, if you didn't fund that, what would that $250 be worth?
$250. Less inflation.
And in 18 years, what do you think a college education is going to go for?
For God's sakes. Well, so it's shaping his legacy, I think, as much as... it's one of those really good things you'd like to do. If we had a giant surplus, let's set up a long-tail program like that. But the truth is that we've been spending it. We've talked about this, but now it's really come home to roost. We've spent at a rate of 5% a year for 5 years. We've used one-time funds, $640 million of higher fees, surcharges, and taxes, including property taxes, to fund. And we have not enough. We don't have much to show for it. The economy's been growing at 2% a year. So here it is. Now we've got a Medicaid program that's expensive, not easily managed. We don't know so much about the population of 188,000 Vermonters who are in some fashion either receiving benefits or in the Medicaid program, and we don't know how to fund it. Who the heck would do that? Who would say, this is a good program, let's sign everybody up without a plan to fund it? So $250 sounds like a small amount of money, but you're going to pay for that.
Yeah.
So it's not like we got to see
we don't know how we're going to pay for it. That's the other thing. The legislature goes, okay, $250, $500. Where's the money coming from? That would be another item that they would be tasked with finding the money for.
Well, yes. So standing around this table, we say that, and the legislature has actually accommodated this governor for 5 years, and so that's why they know, even if they say publicly no taxes, fees, or surcharges, they know they're going to raise taxes, fees, and surcharges. The only predictable outcome in this budget session will be they're going to raise your taxes in some fashion. You know that because they can't figure out a way to get through the problem they've created. It's a reason why we need to take stock and go in a different direction. So that's not the only reason why I'm running, but a different direction is a good reason to run.
Republican candidate for governor Bruce Lisman in studio with us this morning. If you have questions, you have comments, you want to talk with Bruce, you can do that. 888-414-0303. That's the toll-free number, 888-414-0303. We'll take some calls, and you're first with Bruce Lisman this morning. Good morning to you.
Yes, good morning. Hang on a second. I have a suggestion, maybe. In 1985, when Madeline Kunin assumed the governorship, the largest employer in Vermont was IBM with about 12,000 employees. 2 years later, they were second largest, and the state of Vermont was the largest. And we've gone from, I think, around the $800 to $900 million budget to a $1.5 billion budget in the last 25 years. And most of that time, the Democrats have been in control. So my suggestion is that the governor, the lieutenant governor, the representatives, the senators, they run as a group against the last 25 years of this socialistic, take money from the people and come up with every program you can think of. And the other suggestion is to have these committees that deal with health and welfare or any other separate division take parts of the budget and study them and see how to reduce it and get it back under control. We certainly haven't had that big an increase in money available through the number of population or any other means.
Bruce, your thoughts on his comments?
You've captured a big theme in our state of fast-growing budgets. I think maybe we ought to look at it this way. What's happened has happened, and we might not have liked, particularly the last 5 years or so, and the override of Governor Douglas's budget. And remember that that was probably his last fight. In the year before we elected this governor and really this legislature. So maybe it's time to seek out a new direction. I think we've had enough. Most of us have a hard time affording our own homes. Some of us can't find the right job to afford to stay here. So affordability is an important matter. Taxes, fees, surcharges, property taxes are all part of the cost of living. But the truth is, what we really want is a different direction, because we have an economy centered here in Chittenden County, and even here it's riddled with some weaknesses. And outside of Chittenden County, our economy is growing at a very modest rate. Most of the counties experiencing population losses, and some of the towns that center those counties are population levels not seen in 30 or 40 years. There are some big reasons to have a big change in direction. And really what he's saying is we need some kind of plan, some kind of fiscal discipline. So if we spend money today on important projects, we'd want to know that in 5 years we've done the right thing. Tell me, can you say honestly, you or your listening audience, can we say that what we've done in the last 5 years has made the state a better place? There are projects we've done that are good. And I don't want to make the governor into some cartoon character, because he has said good things and he has done good things, but the net of all of that is the state in a better shape? I think the fact that we have a budget crisis every year tells you that we need to do it differently.
Was it a good idea to give Global Foundries $1 million? Is that a good idea?
Well, I don't know the detail of it, and it's too easy to pick on the governor or whomever was working on it. My guess is that was an essential part of some longer discussion, and I don't think we should quibble. It seems, at odds with common sense, saying, well, it's owned by the Emirates.
Yeah, why are we giving them $1 million?
Yeah, well, maybe someplace along the way somebody said, we'd like this kind of money as a show of good faith. Or I think we need them as an employer in this state and in this county and that town. So I wouldn't quibble over the $1 million. I'm certain he did the right thing in that case.
Right back to the phone lines, 888-414-0303. You're next with Republican candidate for governor, Bruce Lisman, on Charlie, Ernie, and Lisa. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Exactly what we did with Global Foundries, we need to do in other parts of the state. I have family in southern part of Vermont, and people are just leaving in groves, and small businesses are closing up. And we just need to have a big push of business exemptions for taxes for 4 or 5 years to get these people in here. And if maybe the companies don't pay taxes for a couple of years, but all the employees then pay taxes. And that will do nothing but bring in more business and bring in better paying jobs. And that's the baseline to get anything started, is to get us with paying jobs. And if that means businesses in with no taxes for 5 years, if they weren't here, we wouldn't be getting their taxes anyway.
Bruce, good idea? Bad idea?
She's captured it. So, let me take a step back. Our government has been surprised or even stunned when companies have announced they're leaving. Energizer in St. Albans, fortunately Milan was hiring, so it didn't hurt so bad, but Energizer in Bennington has clearly announced or signaled they're going to downsize. Kennemental up in the Northeast Kingdom, gone. And a handful of others are gone. We don't put a press release out. There's no press, there's no governor cutting a ribbon when a company leaves here. Yeah. Gildan, which is a former Chenard company in Northfield, is gone. These are really important things. So maybe we ought to hold on to what we've got. She makes an excellent point. maybe monetary concessions is the last step in a relationship. So, Charlie, if I gave you $10 a week to be my friend, eventually I'd run out of money and we wouldn't be friends anymore. So let's do it a different way. Let's you and I build a relationship, share experiences, do the best we can at seeing the other point of view that you might have. In the end of some period of time, we'll have a good relationship built on the right things. And then if you need a $10 loan, I'll give it to you. In our state, we don't spend enough time understanding who our employers really are or building relationships with them, particularly those that are large, owned by companies in another part of the world, or very large employers who are based here but have plants elsewhere or have options elsewhere. We're competing with 49 other states and maybe 100 countries for some manufacturing jobs. So getting to know them, building a relationship, making it not so much the easiest place to do business, but the place where the smallness is an advantage is really important. And then if it takes some kind of monetary concession at the end of the road to keep them here, well, we can negotiate something.
Right back to the phone lines.
It's the last step.
You're next with Bruce Lisman. Good morning to you.
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Lisman, for running. We need some more Republicans running, conservatives in this state. I just want to make a quick comment for the listeners out there. I mean, a lot of people get the notion that if we change the governor, things are going to happen. But the reality of the matter is, if we don't change the legislature and we get rid of these progressive liberal Democrats, then things that the governor's hands are going to be tied, even if we do have a conservative governor in place.
Excellent point. Bruce?
He makes a really good point. Well, all these things are harder than imagined, and he's exactly right. The election of one governor without context is not going to change the direction that the state is going in. But maybe we ought to think about this. First, outside of this room and outside of Montpelier, there's a large coalition that's forming up in support of having a stronger economy. It sounds simple when we talk here, but this is an opportunity that we should be taking advantage of at all levels of our state, no matter what people are talking about. In the end, they're talking about the need for a stronger economy, even in Chittenden County. Frankly, if you don't have the right job, that's, as they say, a mild recession. If you're out of a job, that's a depression. And so that middle ground is not any better than, in a lot of ways, than the alternative. Outside of Chittenden County, things are not good. The housing stock deteriorates. We see it passing through or stopping by. And again, population is a good indicator. I think we have to have not only a movement in support of economic growth, if you sound so simple, but it's so hard to imagine in our state. Not only do we need this coalition to form up around ideas, you need a governor with ideas. The earlier, the better. Clarity about what we should be doing. Of course, I'm really clear about that.
Bruce, one of the things that you said in your press release after the State of the State is that we need a governor that tells the truth, tells people the truth. And you take him to task, and we hear this all the time. We have a low unemployment rate. Now, is he telling the truth when he says that?
Well, yes. That on that particular number, it is what it is, though it's a sample. But of course,
but what does it really mean?
Well, it means one thing in isolation means less as you look at other numbers, and so we look at where jobs are, what kind of jobs people are taking. They tend to be heading for the lower wage level in the hospitality and leisure industries. Some low end of I would call it healthcare services, companion services are generally modestly paid.
But do we also have people that are leaving the labor force?
So I was getting to that. So the labor force is actually in pretty steady decline. There's a phenomenon in northeastern states where that older population, that can happen, but we live here, and so we need to fix that. And we're not going to fix it by doing one thing. It's a lot of things over a period of time. In my opinion, the governor after me is going to be taking victory laps for the work that we do in the next 4 to 6 years. And what I mean is the things we do lack headline appeal.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about a culture change in the government itself, like reorganizing and restructuring it in a way.
You're going to have to do cuts, right? I mean, there's no way that we can get out of this. You can't tax your way out of the situation that we're in. The next governor is going to have to be stern, along with the legislature, to cut back on our spending, correct?
I think we should. Here's what I've said, just to be clear. I've said this early and often. So 5% spending growth with an economy growing at 2% inevitably puts you in front of a brick wall, which is about where we are. So I've said if the economy is going to grow at 2% a year, which is roughly what I think it'll do, we should be spending at roughly that 2% level, and we should be looking for efficiencies in the state. Now, listen, this is really interesting. So this governor said in response, I believe, to me, everybody talks about making government, more efficient, but if it were easy, it would have been done by now. Exactly. It is not easy. It's hard work. It's a full-time job changing what is really a very large enterprise. Lots of employees. You got lots of systems and structures, not all of them working together. So what we need are talented managers to imagine our state's government servicing you, Vermonters, as a client, not as a contact, as a client. We're so used to mediocrity that we think this is how it is. That is not how it is, and we need to change it. So if you combine some efficiencies, in real life, get more money to the right programs, to the right people,
how can we
save
money?
Be sufficient.
You've called for an audit, as well as Lieutenant Governor Phil Scott, an audit of our Medicaid program. Yeah. How much money could we save there? What do you think, ultimately?
I don't think we know. Listen, you're talking about 100...
Is it a scary number?
I don't know. They think it's a small number, and yesterday the governor said that they're now able to check eligibility, and I may have my facts.
Weren't you amazed?
9,000. They're checking at 9,000 per month. That'll take them 2 years.
1/3 of the population is on Medicaid.
Yeah. What do you make of that?
It's a lot.
What does that take? Yeah. We have the highest percentage. We have the highest percentage of young men and women on disability. What does that tell you? So, mental health, drugs. What is it? Here we live in an information-free zone in Vermont. We don't know enough. And I don't know how the heck you run an enterprise like the state government that deals with real people, real problems without knowing more. And this is a perfect example. So I've called for an audit, not only because I don't think we know enough about their eligibility, but there's more to it. So we ought to know how healthy this universe is, how different their health care is from what it was before. And not only if they're healthier, but does accessibility matter? And do we save money in the system? We spend a ton of money to get a small population of uninsured into the insured category. Is it worth it? We ought to ask the question and find out.
I'll ask you one more question. We got a break. We're going long here, and appreciate you joining us this morning, Bruce. The governor has asked for a moratorium on the tax penalty portion of Act 46. Your thoughts on that?
So they're obsessed with that part of Act 46. That's symptomatic of an act that didn't work. So Act 46 requires all kinds of consolidation. It says 900 students per school is the right number. There's like zero research on that. And they argue that small schools are either inefficient or not good enough, which there's no research that says that's true. So I've said, don't tweak it. Stop tweaking stuff and get rid of it. Let's come up with a new system with some thoughtfulness, real research, good discussion that embraces some basic issues in Vermont. It's not just about, quote, local control. It's about a democracy that works at a local level. And right now, your vote doesn't matter to your property taxes. It doesn't connect. We have a system that's busted. All this does is create a different kind of system that is equally busted. Don't tweak it.
All right.
Dump it.
Good luck Wednesday night to everybody on Powerball. Bruce.
All right. I'll be listening. If you win, you're not winning, right?
No,
He's not playing.
I'm not playing.
We're going to call you.
Yeah.
Well,
take me out for breakfast.
Yeah.
No, you have to pay.
You listen on Thursday morning, Bruce, because Lisa
It'll
and
just
I
be Charlie.
Yeah. It's just Charlie.
Yeah.
It's just Charlie because you won.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, I like that. Well, we go over to his house and have a pizza.
That's right. You go
We're going to rub it in.
We could buy his pizza. The whole business.
LismanForVermont.com. You can go to the website LismanForVermont.com. Bruce, stay in touch.
Yeah, thanks for
joining
having
us
me
this
today.
morning.
Great.
7:39 on WVMT. We got to move on. We've got Tuesday morning trivia with Jeff from Ramontos. That's coming up right after we check news. Fox News is first. Ernie's got some headlines. Keep it right here. WVMT.